Part 1. Introduction and Crystal Story. Hello, my friends. My name is Crystal, and today I want to share something very personal with you. It's about my journey with English. Maybe you already feel the same as me. For a long time, I could understand English very well, but I couldn't speak. I listened to movies, podcasts, teachers, and I understood the meaning. But when it was my turn to say something, I froze. My mind was empty. I remember the first time I went to an English class. The teacher asked me, "Can you introduce yourself?" I knew the words, I knew the grammar, but I felt so nervous. I only said, "My name is Crystal. I like music." And then I stopped. Inside, I was so disappointed. I wanted to say more, but I was afraid of mistakes. Maybe you also have this problem. You listen, you understand, you read, but when it's time to speak, it feels impossible. Don't worry. This is very normal. Many English learners experience this stage. And today, I will tell you my story, how I moved from silence to confidence. I will also share practical tips that worked for me. At the beginning, I thought something was wrong with me. I asked myself, why can I understand, but I can't speak? I thought maybe I was not good at languages. But then I realized the problem was not me. The problem was the way I studied. I learned grammar rules, I memorized vocabulary lists, I did writing exercises, but I almost never practiced speaking. So of course I couldn't speak. It's like learning to swim by reading a book. You can read about water, about movements, about breathing. You understand everything. But if you never enter the water, you will never swim. The same with English. You need to speak to learn how to speak. I remember one evening I watched a movie with my friend. She laughed and talked about it in English. I understood everything she said, but I stayed quiet. Later, she asked me, "Crystal, why don't you talk?" And I didn't know what to say. I felt small and shy. That night, I promised myself, I don't want to be quiet anymore. I want to speak English with confidence. Not perfect English, but confident English. So I started a new journey. Step by step, I practiced speaking, even when it was scary. I made many mistakes. Sometimes people didn't understand me. Sometimes I felt embarrassed. But with every small step, I grew stronger. And now I'm here, talking to you, sharing my story. In this video, I want to give you hope. If you understand English but cannot speak yet, you are not alone. I was there too. But I learned how to change. And you can too. In the next parts, I will tell you why this happens, how to break your fear, and how to practice every day in a simple, effective way. So stay with me. By the end of this video, you will feel more confident and ready to start speaking. Part 2. Why you understand but don't speak. Hi again, it's Crystal. In the first part, I told you about my own story, how I could understand English but I couldn't speak. Now let's talk about why this happens. I want you to know the real reasons, because once you understand them, you can start to change. When I was a student, I studied English for many years in school. I learned grammar rules, I read texts, I wrote answers to questions in my notebook. I listened to my teacher and sometimes to audio recordings. I could understand many things, but nobody asked me to speak. Nobody gave me real practice with my voice. So of course, when it was my turn, I couldn't do it. This is the first reason. We don't practice speaking enough. Learning English is like learning to ride a bicycle. If you only read a book about bicycles, you will understand what a bicycle is. You will know the parts, the wheels, the pedals. But when you sit on the bicycle, you will fall. Why? Because your body needs practice. You must try, fall, try again, and then you learn to balance. Speaking English is the same. Your mouth, your brain, your tongue need practice. If you don't use them, you cannot speak fluently. The second reason is fear of mistakes. I remember when I was at university, I could understand lectures in English, I listened, I took notes, and I understood the main ideas. But in seminars, when the professor asked a question, I stayed silent. Why? Because I was afraid that my answer was not perfect. I thought, maybe my grammar is wrong. Maybe my pronunciation sounds strange. Maybe the other students will laugh. So I said nothing. I just listened. Maybe you feel the same. You think speaking is dangerous because you don't want to look foolish. But here's the truth. Nobody cares about your mistakes. People want to understand your message, your idea, your story. They don't care if your verb tense is perfect. And when they hear you try, they usually feel respect. The third reason is we focus too much on input. I loved reading English books. I enjoyed watching movies with subtitles. I thought, if I understand more, I will automatically speak better. But that's not true. Understanding is only input. Speaking is output. They are connected, yes, but you need to practice both. If you only listen and read, you will become a good listener and reader, but you will not become a good speaker. The fourth reason is lack of real-life situations. In my country, people didn't speak English in daily life. I only used English in class or sometimes on the internet. But in real conversations, at the shop, at home, with friends, I spoke my native language. So I didn't have real chances to use English. And when you don't use a skill, it stays weak. So let me summarize these reasons. Not enough practice speaking, fear of mistakes, too much focus on input, not output, no real-life situations. Do you recognize yourself in these reasons? If yes, don't feel bad. You are not alone. Many learners all around the world have the same experience, and it is not your fault. It is the way languages are usually taught in schools. But here is the good news. When you understand the reasons, you can also find solutions. Later in this video, I will give you practical steps to break the fear and practice speaking every day. I want to tell you one personal memory. One day I was in a coffee shop. The waiter asked me, "What would you like?" I understood perfectly, but I didn't answer. I just pointed to the menu. My friend laughed and said, "Crystal, you know the words. Why don't you say them?" And she was right. I could say, "I would like a cappuccino." Simple words. But in that moment, my fear stopped me. That day, I realized something important. The problem was not English. The problem was confidence. I didn't need more vocabulary. I didn't need more grammar rules. I needed courage to use the English I already knew. So if you are listening now, maybe you have enough English to start speaking. You don't need to wait for perfect English. You don't need to study for 10 more years. You can begin today with the words you already know. In the next part, I will tell you exactly how I started to break my fear. I will share small, simple steps that gave me confidence. Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about being brave enough to open your mouth and try. Stay with me. The best part is coming. Part 3. Breaking the fear of speaking. Hi, it's Crystal again. In the last part, I explained why so many people can understand English but cannot speak. Now, I want to share with you how I started to break my own fear of speaking. This was not fast, but step by step, it worked. Maybe my story can help you too. The first thing I learned was, don't wait for perfect English. For many years, I thought I needed more vocabulary, more grammar, more listening before I could speak. But actually, I already knew enough to start. I realized that if I always waited, I would never speak. So I decided I will use the English I have right now. Even if my words were simple, even if my sentences were short, I would try. The second step was speak to myself. Yes, it sounds a little strange, but it really helped me. Every morning when I was getting ready, I looked in the mirror and talked in English. For example, "Good morning, Crystal. Today you will go to work. You have a busy day. You must remember to send an email." Just small sentences. At first, it was funny and a little uncomfortable, but soon it became natural. I discovered that my mouth and tongue needed practice, just like exercise for the body. Speaking to myself was safe. Nobody could laugh at me. The third step was practice with small, real situations. I started in places where I felt safe. For example, in a coffee shop, instead of pointing at the menu, I forced myself to say, "I would like a latte, please." In a shop, I said, "Excuse me, how much is this?" These were short, simple sentences, but they gave me courage. After each success, I felt stronger. The fourth step was accept mistakes. This was the hardest for me. I always wanted to be perfect, but I realized mistakes are part of learning. Think about babies. When babies learn to talk, they make mistakes every day. But parents don't laugh. They smile, they encourage, and step by step, the baby learns. We are the same. When I finally accepted mistakes, I felt free. I said to myself, "It's okay, Crystal. You are learning. Mistakes are your teachers." I remember one important moment. I was traveling and I met a tourist who didn't speak my language. She asked me something in English. At first, I wanted to stay silent, but then I remembered my promise. I opened my mouth and said, "I'm not sure, but I think the bus station is over there." My sentence was not perfect, but she understood. She smiled and said, "Thank you." That small success gave me so much energy. I thought, wow, I can communicate. People can understand me. Another big step for me was record my voice. I started to use my phone to record myself speaking. At first, I hated my voice. I thought my pronunciation sounded terrible. But when I listened again, I realized it's not so bad. People can understand me. Recording helped me hear my mistakes, but also hear my progress. Over time, my pronunciation became clearer. Finally, the most powerful step was find speaking partners. I joined a small group online. We were learners from different countries. Our English was not perfect, but we all wanted to practice. We met once a week and talked about simple topics: family, hobbies, weekend plans. At first, I was nervous, but everyone was kind. They also made mistakes, so I didn't feel alone. These conversations gave me confidence and made speaking fun. So let me summarize my steps for breaking fear. Don't wait for perfect English. Start now. Talk to yourself every day. Use English in small, real situations. Accept mistakes as part of learning. Record your voice to hear progress. Find partners or groups to practice. I know these steps sound simple, but they really work. I'm proof. If I can do it, you can too. Remember, confidence is not something you wait for. Confidence comes when you take action, even when you are afraid. In the next part, I'll share with you some practical daily exercises that you can do even if you don't live in an English-speaking country. These exercises will help you train your speaking like a habit, so English becomes part of your daily life. Stay with me, we're just getting started. Part 4. Practical Daily Exercises. Hi, it's Crystal again. In the last part, I told you about how I started to break my fear of speaking English. Today, I want to share with you some practical daily exercises that helped me build confidence and make English a natural part of my life. These are small things, but if you do them every day, they can completely change your speaking. The first exercise is shadowing. Maybe you have heard this word before. Shadowing means you listen to someone speaking in English, and at the same time, you try to repeat exactly what they say. It's like being their shadow. For example, I listened to short podcasts or YouTube videos. I pressed play, and I spoke with the person. Same speed, same tone, same words. At first, I couldn't follow, and I felt frustrated. But slowly, I improved. Shadowing helped me with pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. It felt like training my mouth and ears at the same time. The second exercise is describe your world. This was one of my favorite daily habits. I looked around me and described what I saw in English. For example, in the morning, I said, I'm brushing my teeth. I'm washing my face. I'm making coffee. Later, outside, I said, the bus is late. A man is reading a newspaper. The sky is blue today. These small descriptions trained me to think in English instead of translating from my language. The third exercise is set a daily speaking timer. I gave myself 5 minutes every day to talk in English, no matter what. I could talk about my day, my feelings, or even what I wanted to eat. The rule was simple: only English, no breaks, no stopping. Sometimes I recorded it on my phone. Sometimes I just spoke aloud in my room. After a few weeks, I noticed that speaking became easier because my brain was practicing thinking in English. The fourth exercise is ask and answer your own questions. I wrote simple questions on paper, like, what did you do yesterday? What will you do tomorrow? What is your favorite food? Then I answered them out loud. Later, I made harder questions. What do you think about social media? What are the advantages of learning English? This was like training for real conversations. The fifth exercise is read and retell. I chose short texts like stories or news articles. First, I read them quietly. Then I closed the text and tried to retell the story in my own words. Sometimes I forgot words, but that was okay. The goal was not to be perfect, but to practice expressing myself. This helped me feel comfortable creating sentences without memorizing. Another powerful exercise was record conversations with myself. I pretended to be two people. First, I asked a question in English, then I answered it in English. For example, "Hi, Crystal. How are you today?" "I'm fine, thank you. I went shopping this morning." "Oh, really? What did you buy?" "I bought some bread and vegetables." It sounds funny, but it was excellent practice for natural conversation. The last exercise I want to share today is use English in your hobbies. I love reading, so I started reading simple books in English. I also love music, so I listened to English songs and sang along. If you like cooking, you can watch English recipes. If you like sports, you can follow English videos. When you connect English with things you enjoy, practice doesn't feel like study anymore. It feels like fun. So let's quickly review these daily exercises. Shadowing, copy a native speaker's speech. Describe your world. Talk about what you see and do. Daily speaking timer, 5 minutes of nonstop English. Ask and answer your own questions. Read and retell short texts. Record conversations with yourself. Use English in your hobbies. You don't need to do all of them every day. Choose 2 or 3 that feel good for you. The most important thing is consistency. Even 10 minutes every day is more powerful than 2 hours once a week. When I practiced like this, I started to feel different. English was not just something from a textbook. It became part of my daily life. My brain started to think in English more naturally, and slowly, my fear of speaking disappeared. In the next part, I will talk about how to build long-term habits so you can continue practicing and never lose motivation. This will help you keep going even when life is busy or you feel tired. Stay with me because your English speaking journey is only beginning. Part 5. Building long-term habits and staying motivated. Hi, it's Crystal again. In the last part, I shared some practical daily exercises that helped me practice English every day. But here's the truth. It's not enough to practice for 1 week or 1 month. If you really want to speak English confidently, you need to build long-term habits. Today, I will tell you how I created habits that stayed with me and how I found motivation even when it was difficult. The first secret is start small and stay consistent. Many people make a big plan. They say, "I will study English for 3 hours every day." And maybe they do it for 3 days. But after that, they are tired, busy, or bored. Then they stop. I learned that it's better to start small. For example, just 10 minutes a day, or even 5 minutes. The important part is not the time, but the habit. If you do something every day, your brain starts to expect it, and soon it becomes natural. The second secret is connect English with your routine. I made English part of my daily life, not something extra. For example, when I made breakfast, I listened to an English podcast. When I walked to the bus stop, I repeated new words in my head. When I brushed my teeth, I described my day in English. These small connections made English practice automatic. I didn't need to think, "Oh no, now I must study." Instead, it was just part of my normal life. The third secret is track your progress. At first, it feels like nothing is changing, but small progress adds up. I kept a little notebook. every day, I wrote one new word or one sentence I learned. After 1 month, I looked back and thought, wow, I learned so many things. This gave me energy to continue. You can also record your voice every week. Later, listen again. You will hear how your speaking improves. The fourth secret is make practice enjoyable. If English feels like boring homework, you will not continue. I chose activities I loved. I watched cooking shows in English because I enjoy food. I read stories about travel because I love traveling. I sang along with English songs. Sometimes I even played games in English. When you enjoy the process, you don't need motivation because practice feels like fun. The fifth secret is celebrate small wins. I remember the first time I ordered coffee in English without fear. It was a small thing, but I felt so proud. I said to myself, yes, Crystal, you are improving. These little celebrations are important. They remind you that you are moving forward, even if the steps are small. The sixth secret is don't be afraid of mistakes. Honestly, I still make mistakes, but now I know that mistakes are part of learning. Every mistake is a teacher. When you say something wrong, you learn the right way. So don't think of mistakes as failure. Think of them as progress. The seventh secret is find support. It's easier to keep a habit when you are not alone. I joined a small English group online. We met once a week to talk. Sometimes I didn't feel like practicing, but because I knew my friends were waiting, I joined. That support helped me stay motivated. If you don't have a group, you can even share your progress with a friend or family member. The last secret I want to share is remember your why. Why are you learning English? Maybe you want to travel. Maybe you need it for your job. Maybe you want to make international friends. Whatever your reason, write it down. When I felt tired, I looked at my why. For me, it was the dream to work in an international company and travel the world. That dream kept me moving even on hard days. So, let's review quickly. Start small and stay consistent. Connect English with your daily routine. Track your progress. Make practice enjoyable. Celebrate small wins. Don't be afraid of mistakes. Find support. Remember your why. When I followed these secrets, English became a natural part of my life. I didn't need to force myself anymore. I didn't feel pressure. I just lived with English every day, step by step. In the next and final part, I will share my personal success story. How I went from understanding English but being too afraid to speak to feeling confident and free in conversations. I hope my journey will inspire you to believe in yourself and never give up. Stay with me because your journey is possible too. Part 6. My Success Story. Hi, it's Crystal again. Today we have reached the final part of this series. I've told you about my fears, my struggles, and the exercises and habits that helped me. But now, I want to share with you my success story, how I finally went from understanding English but being too afraid to speak to feeling confident and comfortable in real conversations. When I first started, I felt small and shy. I remember the first time I met tourists in my city. They asked me for directions in English. I understood everything they said, but my mind went blank. I was too afraid to answer. I just pointed with my hand and smiled nervously. After they left, I felt so disappointed in myself. I thought, Crystal, you understand, but you cannot speak. Maybe you will never speak well. But I didn't give up. Every day I practiced in small ways. I shadowed podcasts. I described my world. I recorded myself. I did all the little daily exercises I told you about. At first, it felt slow. Sometimes I thought, nothing is changing. But I remembered my dream and I kept going. One of the first big moments happened at work. My company had a meeting with some international clients. My boss asked me to join because I understood English well. I was nervous, but I sat in the meeting. At first, I only listened. But then one client asked a simple question about our project. Everyone looked at me. My heart was beating so fast, but I took a deep breath and said one sentence in English. Then another, and another. Suddenly, I was speaking. Not perfectly, but clearly. When the meeting finished, my boss smiled and said, "Good job, Crystal." I will never forget that feeling. After that, I started using English more. I joined an online speaking club once a week. At first, I was scared to turn on my microphone. But when I finally did, people were kind and patient. They listened. They didn't laugh at my mistakes. That gave me confidence. Slowly, I began to enjoy conversations. Another big moment was when I traveled abroad for the first time. I went to London. I remember standing in a cafe and ordering coffee in English. The barista smiled and understood me. It was such a simple thing, but I felt so proud. I thought, this is it. I can do it. I can really communicate in English. Of course, my English is still not perfect. Sometimes I forget words, sometimes I make mistakes. But now I don't feel afraid. I know that communication is more important than perfection. People understand me, and that is what really matters. Looking back, I see that my success was not from one big step, but from many small steps. Practicing every day, staying consistent, building habits, enjoying the process, and remembering my why. These are the things that changed my life. So, my message to you is this: if I can do it, you can do it too. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until your English is perfect. Start speaking now, even if it's just one sentence, even if it's just to yourself in the mirror. Every small step brings you closer to fluency. I want to thank you for joining me in this journey, and I hope my story has given you motivation and hope. Remember, your voice matters. Your story matters. And English can be the bridge to connect you with the world. So keep practicing, keep believing in yourself, and never give up. One day you will look back and say, just like me, yes, I can speak English confidently. Thank you so much for listening, and I wish you the best on your English journey.